Okay, before my battery runs out, I'm going to do a video, kind of a lecture video on taking out the curve with words. Okay. Um, so I got a question on how to take out a curve. I usually get this question about once a month, but I tried to explain it in the videos, and I was going back through my videos, and I was having a hard time locating precisely where I mention exactly how to take out a curve from a spall or a flake, right? So this would be a bulb of percussion. Okay, let's see if we can get this correct here. Correct focus. Okay, this is how it usually looks when you have a bulb of percussion and a curved flake. How do you take the curve out? Or if you're working on a biface and all of a sudden you notice it's starting to get wonky like this, or like that, something happens and it gets curved. How do you fix it? How do you take the curve out? What is your approach? What is my approach? Well, you have to imagine or be good at imagining where the center line is on the straightest part. If there is a straight part, if there's not a straight part, then we'll get into that a little bit later. But if there is a straight part, let's just say that this is going to be your center line, right? And be honest with yourself. Where is it that you consider the center line of the piece? You're not going to be able to take the curve out if the edge of it goes past the center line. You're going to have to remove all this. You're going to have to remove all this. Okay, there's just no way around it. You can't take out the curve unless you remove that. And then you can go back and you can fix this, and the final effect will be something like that, where you remove this part here because that's a lump now after you take off this big part, and you're going to have to remove this lump here after you remove that part. So you're going to lose length, right? There's no way around it, right? Same with this one here. If it's completely curved, you can be a little bit more variable. You can, if you only want this upper part, you can do this. You can break it in half and do that part, and then do this part separately. If you want to capture the flattest area of the whole thing, you'll have to kind of split the difference here, right? You may have to live with some of the original surface, because that's really thin there. Some of the original surface on the final piece. So this is the way I would take this curve out, and then the final piece, or the final preform, you're going to lose this part, and you're going to lose this part, and you're left with this preform shape, and from there you can thin it down with probably some of this original surface left on the piece. The thicker the piece, the easier it is. The thicker from here to here, the easier it is to take out this curve, right? But let's get into the actual look of the piece, and how do you approach the napping of the piece. Like, let's say I have a wavy edge. What do I do? I took out a big flake here, and I said to myself, oops, this used to be like this, but I removed a big old flake or a series of flakes, and now I'm curved. what do I do? What can I do to flatten it, take out the curve, right? In this case, what you're going to have to do is, let's see if I can recreate this really quick. What I do, okay, I leave this part alone for now, but then I lower this edge. I lower this edge. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to lower this edge. I'm going to trim it, continuous platform, right? And then I'm going to strike off flakes from this bottom part so that I'm going to be getting rid of this much here. Can you see that? That's what straightens it out. You remove these after you lower this edge down by chipping that way. It lowers the edge, and then you can run flakes to remove this part. Okay? That's the easiest way I can explain it. You can immediately, if you wanted to, if you're daring enough, you can hit here with either a side strike or just hitting with an abrader. You can, or a hammerstone, keep knocking pieces off, and eventually you'll knock that off, and you'll get it straightened out again. I prefer to lower the edge first and then nap it across. That way, if there's any weird spots or something like a step fracture or something, you can take it off with strikes going inward rather than just picking off the tip, right? But either way is fine, because you can always lower this edge later and knock off flakes in that direction and do the damage control that way. But what I tend to do is, instead of doing this, because sometimes it'll crack in half if you do it this way, send in flakes. It doesn't really show it well here, but send flakes into the piece to get rid of that part that's curved that you can no longer incorporate into the piece, right? So the lesson here is, if there's a curve, you have to lose some length. And same with if you have a cross section, right? You know, it's unfortunate. This is really thin on this part, right, in this case, but it doesn't really correspond to the center line of your cross section. You're going to want your freeform or to have a cross section like this and not incorporate this in there. You know what I mean? Or you're going to somehow work it like this so that you lose this part and keep this part. You're going to have to lose some length somewhere. Okay, this is a cross section, and this is an edge view. Okay, you're going to have to lose some off either the sides or the top or bottom when you take out these curves. And I know this is very obvious to many of you, but I do get this question quite a bit. Like I said, about once a month or so. People have trouble, especially when they're working bottle bottoms or something, but it also comes up in other flint knapping. What else can I say? Direct. Which is better to use, direct percussion or indirect or pressure? Which is best? Okay, that's kind of a good question, because it depends on the material. Direct percussion with difficult material. You can use indirect percussion with extremely hard materials, but a direct percussion strike is usually the best with something really hard, I find it just takes too long to whittle it down with indirect percussion if it's a really difficult material. Indirect is used for easy materials almost exclusively to take out these curves. That's what I use. I hardly ever use direct percussion on an easy to work material because, you know, each flake is going to probably be good, and you can whittle it down and not worry about too many mistakes. You know, there's a rule: the more flakes you do, the bigger the chance for a mistake, right? The more flakes you are creating, you're also statistically creating a higher percentage of errors and a higher chance for errors, except if you use easy, so-called easy material, which the flaking is more predictable and a lot easier. Okay, pressure flaking to reduce this type of thing. I would use it on small pieces only. Okay, small pieces only. You can do it with pressure on a large piece, but for me it takes forever. Which means there's fatigue involved, and I never do it on a large piece. Even if it's glass or something easy to pressure flake, I always use indirect for the easy stuff. And if it's a really difficult, like rhyolite, let's just say, for an example, I tend to use direct percussion on most of my issues that are like this. There's like a curved flake, or I mess up during the knapping and I get curved again. I'll just use direct percussion to knock off the piece that's in question. Okay? All right. Hope that helps.